Well, we all remember where we were 5 years ago. That's when the world shut down. A virus we'd never seen before took over the planet. It also took over our lives in a way that would impact us all in some way or another.
Yeah, our Monica Robbins has a look back at the very beginning and how far we've come since then.
We're now both obviously coming to you live from our homes because we are in that effort to follow those guidelines. And the information about COVID-19 is constantly changing.
And so it began, a new way of life for all of us. The pandemic became real when Governor DeWine took the historic step of shutting down the state on March 23, 2020. That day, we had 442 COVID cases and 6 deaths.
This is a high-risk operation, but it would be high risk if we didn't do anything.
DeWine, Ohio Department of Health Director Dr. Amy Acton, and interpreter Marla Berkowitz became household names as we tuned in for their daily coronavirus updates. Those early days found us desperate for testing.
We have basically shut down drive-through testing.
Those lines were nothing compared to lines at food banks. And millions filing for unemployment, or at least trying to. Our elderly, the most vulnerable of all, were kept inside. We visited as best we could through windows or phones. Still, too many died. Grocery stores remained open, but for the first time, empty shelves were common scenes. Parents became teachers as our schools remained closed.
Salt and pepper on the chicken.
A month later, Ohio passed 10,000 cases and 100 deaths. Little did we know COVID-19 was just getting started. Yet we pressed on, finding new ways to celebrate birthdays and graduations. Drive-bys took on a more pleasant meaning. By mid-May, as the virus seemed to slow, businesses slowly reopened. But by month's end, another health emergency brought our nation to its knees: racism and the death of George Floyd. COVID-19 took a backseat to racial unrest affecting us all. But the virus never stopped. It continued to mutate. And by the time we were ready to send kids back to school and try to get back to normal, the alpha wave crashed upon us and continued to disrupt our plans. For the first time in human history, scientists from around the world were collaborating on one single problem: stopping this virus. Billions of dollars targeted toward one solution. It enabled scientific research that may have taken decades to rocket forward at light speed. The FDA cut the bureaucratic red tape, clinical trials were sped up, and vaccines and medications were approved with emergency use authorization. The mRNA vaccines from Pfizer and Moderna began going into the arms of the elderly in January 2021. The Johnson & Johnson vaccine was stopped in April, while some women developed blood clots and one died. It's estimated the first 6 months of vaccination resulted in 8 million fewer cases and 120,000 fewer deaths and 700,000 fewer hospitalizations in the U.S. alone. A powerful tool, if only used.
There was a big disappointment by the fact that very many people did not want to take a vaccine, so they're both safe and effective.
But the virus found a workaround and mutated into Omicron by winter of 21. Because of the mRNA technology, the vaccine formulations can be changed much faster to fight this new variant. Boosters were added to those COVID vaccine cards. As time passed, the virus mutations mellowed, and it became more like a bad flu or wicked cold. Still, people are dying from COVID. But on April 10, 2023, President Biden declared the pandemic over, and the WHO followed.
I declare COVID-19 over as a global health emergency.
By the official pandemic end, the virus claimed more than 1.1 million Americans and more than 42,000 Ohioans during its 3-year rampage.
Other things you might remember was how unemployment claims overwhelmed antiquated Ohio computer systems. Toilet paper, hand sanitizer, disinfecting wipes, rubbing alcohol were items people hoarded, and they seemed to have value like gold. COVID and quarantine fatigue became a secondary infection. It brought out the worst in people. There were so many things that could and should have been done better in the beginning, especially relating to communication. But as we look back, we were thrust into a situation the world had not experienced in a century. Hopefully we learned from our mistakes, and if there's another pandemic in this lifetime, hopefully we are ready to respond.
Yeah, hindsight's always 20/20. We now have the benefit of the results to look back at the decisions that were made.
Yes.
And the New York Times, I told you about this earlier, ran a piece that was really kind of amazing, saying we got a lot of stuff wrong. You can't fault the people that were giving this guidance. They were doing the best they could.
They were.
Do you remember the 3 weeks to flatten the curve?
Yes.
Because initially when they said go into your bunkers, it was going to be very temporary.
Sure.
It was not.
Yeah, no, it wasn't. But we had never seen a virus like this before.
Didn't know what to do.
We had no idea what we were dealing with. And I do remember saying almost every day, I'm going to tell you this today. Tomorrow, I'm probably going to tell you something different.
Yes,
And
and,
that's what
that
it
was
was.
how we lived.
Yes.
Yeah. What a time and what a great look back. A lot of that
was
I think a
great,
lot of people have forgotten.
Yeah, and maybe they should.
I'd like to forget it, but I can't. Thanks, Mon. That was a great look back.
That was a great look back. Thank you. All right.